Hi, and welcome everyone. We are delighted to have participants from different parts of the world, whether joining us live or watching it with Zoom. We want to welcome all of you and thank you for being with us for this, which is another session of the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation, and it is held on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Hi, Edward. It's so good to have you here. It is my great pleasure to host today's talk, which is presented by Edward Christie, who's here. And Edward will be speaking on the topic Seeking Faith. And I just wanted to invite everyone to give Edward a very warm welcome. And Edward, before you begin, let's just please allow me to introduce you for those who have not yet met you. So, for everyone, Edward Christie is an active member of the Inner Enlightenment Spiritist Society, and he has studied Spiritism for over 25 years. Edward is also a classically trained pianist who taught music in New York City schools and, interesting enough, computer science courses, right? So the artistic as well as the highly technical fields. I love to hear that, Edward. Edward enjoys learning and uses his love of teaching to share what he has learned with all of us. So, thank you. Thank you for being here. And for all of us who are also here, I ask you to please feel free to send your question at any time during the presentation using the chat window. Edward Christie has set aside time at the end to address your comments and questions. Thank you so much. And Edward, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcia. Good morning, everyone, or good day, I don't know, wherever you're coming in from. I'd like to make my intention clear from the start of this talk. In every moment of your life, you seek what you put your faith in. This faith profoundly influences our perception of the world. When we say that seeing is believing, what we're saying is that we have faith that our eyes can see what's true. And without this faith, we wouldn't even be able to trust our senses. So, what is faith? In man, faith is the inherent sentiment of his future destiny. It is the consciousness that he has of the immense faculties implanted in his inner self, a source in a latent state, which is his duty to make blossom forth and grow by the action of his will. That's from the Gospel according to Spiritism. Every person has a natural desire for the truth. In everything we do, we have faith in something because we're seeking the truth. A seeker, a true seeker, wants to understand what's true and what to trust. We're born with faith, and that faith gives us the will to desire and the conviction that we can achieve what we want. The real question is, what do we have faith in? Faith is either human or divine, according to how man applies his faculties to either the satisfaction of terrestrial needs or to the celestial and future aspirations. Again, the Gospel according to Spiritism. You may have placed your faith in worldly possessions, success, and reputation, and you'll place all your efforts to seek these things. Or you may place your trust in science for knowledge of yourself and technology to solve human problems. In this way, you would have faith in the advancements science and technology will provide meaning for your life. Or perhaps you see that there's more to life than meets the physical eye and have religious faith that sees God as the source of everything ourselves as immortal beings, and that life continues after death. What happens when you die? There are only two possibilities. One is that when your body dies, your life is gone, swallowed into the void. The second belief is that when your body dies, some aspect of you continues to exist. Now ask yourself, knowing that one day I will die, deep down, which do I have faith in? Consciously or not, this question is behind every decision you make. It's the driver who takes you to your destination. It's the reason you get out of bed in the morning. Where is your faith taking you? To answer this question, let's start by looking how faith shapes the way we view suffering. I recently heard something that made me stop and think. If you're feeling good about life, don't worry, it will pass. It reminded me of the Buddha and his first noble truth that suffering is an inherent part of life. From sickness, old age, and death, the deep sense of dissatisfaction we have with our lives, our uncertainty about our future, and the temporary nature of the things that we have. Mankind in general, from all walks of society, is constantly complaining that either he is not happy or that happiness wasn't made for him. Indeed, not riches, power, or the blossom of youth are essential conditions for happiness. Furthermore, not even by uniting these three elements, so desired by many, can happiness be assured, because we are constantly hearing of people of all ages, even those from the privileged classes, bitterly complaining of the situation in which they find themselves. The Gospel according to Spiritism. There are joys in life, yet each one has an expiration date, because no joy can be sustained indefinitely. Our life settles into an easy period and we think suffering's behind us. But the comfort we feel is how life sets us up for future disappointment. Change is inevitable. Something unexpected happens and suffering is back. We're separated from a loved one. A relationship ends. An accident occurs. An illness takes the life of a friend or family member. We lose our job, we get a divorce, see our youth or strength fade away, or we have to face a life-changing medical diagnosis. These changes cause our heart to grieve and lead us to dark places. Now, we're starting our examination of faith with suffering because distress is a wake-up call, alerting us to our inability to solve basic human problems on our own. We know that no amount of worldly success, fame, or money lasts. We see it in our lives, and we see it in the lives of others. Success has a shelf life, and successful people often struggle to maintain this success. Faith begins when we're suffering, because that's when we turn to something or someone for help. We ask, what did I do to deserve this? And how can I stop it? I'm suffering. The question is, what do I have faith in that will help me? If we place our faith in the material world, we may find ways to make the pain manageable, but this doesn't change our heart. Our suffering may pass, but a new suffering will eventually take its place. That's because I'm not searching for the truth, just a Band-Aid, a way to cope with pain, but not to cure the pain. We say, help me get through the exam, free me from this financial burden, restore my health, open a job opportunity for me. I'm looking for something to ease my pain. So I pray. I go to church. I look for help. But as soon as suffering ends, I go back to my old ways. Do you know why sometimes a vague sadness fills your heart, leading you to consider that life is bitter? This is because your spirit, aspiring to happiness and liberty, on finding itself tied to the physical body, which acts like a prison, becomes exhausted through vain efforts to seek release. On recognizing that these attempts are useless, the soul becomes discouraged. And as the body suffers the influence of the spirit, it feels itself weary, apathetic, full of despondency. And it is then that you judge yourself to be unhappy. Again, the gospel according to Spiritism. We're tempted to think that suffering happens when we're not careful, or it can only happen to an unfortunate few, or it can be avoided if we're good or smart. We hope that suffering is optional, that it's something we shouldn't have to suffer. And when, despite all our efforts, we continue suffering, we use strategies to cope with the pain. We drown it out with distractions and addictions, or to avoid hurt and being depressed. We keep busy until we're exhausted, or become desperate and see no end to suffering, or the loss breaks our heart and nothing comforts us. Yet all change, even those we want the most, bring with them a feeling of melancholy, of sadness. We must leave behind the life we know before we can enter a new one. Faith is the only sure remedy for suffering. It will always show the infinite horizon before which the few cloudy days of the present will vanish. Therefore, do not ask what the remedy is for an ulcer or sore, temptation or trial. Remind yourself that those who believe are strengthened through the remedy of faith. And those who doubt its efficiency, be it even for an instant, will immediately be punished because they will quickly feel the pungent anguish of affliction. Gospel according to Spiritism. If we're in pain and we feel we're not going anywhere, we'll ask, what's the use of pain? But if we're going somewhere, if we use pain as a sign of a wound that needs to heal, faith gives us a new perspective on suffering. Suffering reveals our need for hope, meaning, and something greater than ourselves. A moment of crisis gives us a more honest and humble sense of who we are and our place in the universe. So, what is faith? Here's another definition. Faith is the confidence of the human being in his destinies. It is the sentiment that leads him toward the infinite power. It is the certainty of being on the path that leads to truth. And this is from Leon Denis' book, After Death. No one's completely satisfied with their lives. We reach one goal and another takes its place. We look for a better life, a peace we don't have, a change that'll bring lasting happiness. For these, we need confidence that we can get what we're looking for. We trust without absolute certainty that, yes, I can have a better life. This trust in something we want but don't have is called faith. We believe that something is true even though we don't have absolute certainty. Spiritual faith is a search for truth in things we can't see with our material eyes. It senses that what I can see is not all there is, there's much more than meets the eye. Spiritual faith doesn't seek a material benefit. Instead, what I want to know is who I am. I want to know the purpose of my existence. And spiritual faith gives us that ability to see what we believe. When we have faith in more than our physical eye can see, our vision starts to change. We see things we couldn't see before. And this might raise our defenses because we want explanations. We want proof that something is true before we believe. But no book or lecture can give you spiritual faith until you're willing to change what you're looking for, to seek, to find, and to experience what you believe. The question spiritual faith asks is, what kind of person do I want to be? One cannot possess this faith until one has experienced all manner of doubt, that painful perturbation that often besieges the earnest seeker. And again, that's from after death. Humans are always asking questions. We have doubts about who we are and what we're doing here. We want to know, who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? What happens to me when I die? And these are big questions, and we need spiritual faith to find the answers to them. Now, we can use reason and intelligence to answer these questions. Genuine spiritual faith never asks you to give up your reason, to simply accept something because you're told it's true, and don't believe anything I say just because I said it. At the same time, faith is beyond reason because reason alone is unable to provide perfect certainty about these big questions. So, how do we go about answering a question like, who am I? Here's a warning. Don't let anyone answer this question for you. The reason, the purpose, and the meaning of your life are found in what your heart longs for. What does your heart desire? If you answer this question and the answer is up in the head and doesn't reach your heart, then what you want is only temporary. It's simply a material desire that will fade away as soon as the desire for it is satisfied. Our love for worldly things is a distortion of what our hearts really want, since these things will eventually be taken from us. To find the answers that your heart really hungers for, you need spiritual faith. The thing is, a question like, who am I, is just too big to answer on our own. We need help from something outside of ourselves. Where we look for answers is just as important as the trust we have that we can find those answers. For example, if I want to get fit, I wouldn't talk to someone who just had a lot of opinions about how to do this. I want someone who can trust, someone with knowledge. In short, someone who can really help me. Now, what if I want to know who I am and why I'm here and what happens to me after I die? Well, I could turn to self-help gurus and motivational speakers for advice. They offer ways to change my behavior and attitudes so that I can cope better with life's challenges. Sounds good to me. But these kinds of changes, they're good, but they can't handle your real problems because they never touch the deepest desire of your heart. The teachings found in spiritual traditions are reliable sources that guide us in the search to answer our central questions. These traditions are found in religious beliefs and practices. Now, some people don't want to hear about religion, and you have every right to be skeptical. Religious teachings challenge us, and our habitual ways of thinking are stubborn and hard to change. Even people who follow a spiritual tradition may feel that all they get are simple answers to complex questions. They can find the practices empty and the teachings outdated, or suspect that religious leaders aren't really concerned with spiritual growth, but mainly interested in power and control. Now, there are truth in these objections, but let's not throw out the good with the bad. We get faith from those with faith by searching for someone who has dedicated their life to the study of spirituality. Spiritual traditions lead us to find meaningful answers to our deepest questions if we place our faith in their teachings. I can't persuade you that Spiritism provides the answers to all your questions. And that's because faith is an inside job, because it's what your heart longs for. So you have to be convinced of what you believe. And I won't offer you scientific proof for spiritual beliefs, because this always ends in a kind of standoff, because just as spirituality can't be proven scientifically or objectively, guess what? Neither can materialism. They don't rely on the same definition of what counts as real. Instead, if you're up for a challenge, let's try a short experiment. For the next few minutes, set aside your judgments and opinions about spiritual beliefs. You can have all your judgments and all your opinions back right after this experiment, and I'll let you know when the experiment's over. There's just one thing you need to do during the experiment. Whenever you feel resistance to something that you hear or rejection, say to yourself, I'll question that after the experiment ends. And to get in the right mood, ask yourself, what would it mean to me if I had faith in the things spiritual traditions teach? The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung said this: one should not be deterred by the rather silly objection that nobody knows whether these old universal ideas, God, immortality, freedom of the will, and so on, are true or not. Truth is the wrong criterion here. One can only ask whether they are helpful or not, whether man is better off and feels his life more complete, more meaningful, and more satisfying with or without them. Spiritual truth number one: God exists. The universe is a stupendous organism animated by an everlasting life. As our own body is governed by a central will, which directs its actions and ordains its motions, as we, each of us, through the modifications of our flesh, feel ourselves alive in the permanent unity that we name soul, conscious or self, so in a like manner does the universe, in its varied and multiple aspects, know, reflect, and possess itself in a living unity, in a conscious reason, which is God. And that's from Leon Denis' After Death. Whether we call this supreme being God, Allah, Krishna, Yahweh, or the universe, spiritual faith requires a belief in a supreme being. This belief gives a life-changing answer to the question, what is my life for? I admit to myself that I have little control over what happens to me while I live, and none when my death is concerned. The earth we live on is a small planet in a minor galaxy, and each of us is a speck of life living on it. How much control do we really have? We have the illusion that we're in control of our lives because we have free will, but we have no power to control the results of our choices. Only a power greater than you can do that. Think of your life as a continuous conversation between you and God. You make choices, God provides the results. And if you're paying attention, you will see that God is present in each moment of your life. When you have faith in a supreme being, you're not alone, because the conversation between you and God never stops. You have no power to fix yourself. You can only do your best and let God do the rest. You may be in pain, but you're not carrying your suffering alone. God is at work in your life, giving you strength when you feel lost and hopeless. You're being cared for far beyond what you could imagine. And faith shows you that if you follow God's will, you're being guided towards something greater than your suffering. Spiritual teaching number 2, you are an immortal spirit. We have seen that in the universe, nothing perishes. When chemistry and physics both demonstrate that not an atom can be lost, that no force can disappear, how is it then possible to believe that this very unit, which summarizes all the powers of the intellect, how can we conceive that this unit, this self, could be dissolved? How can we believe that this conscious self, in whom life emerges from the chains of fatality, can be annihilated? Leon Denis. If you've ever stood in front of a dead body, you realize that this is no longer the person you knew. What you see in front of you is only a shell. The face is the same, but the person you loved is no longer there. If we open a living person's skull and examine the brain, we wouldn't find memories or consciousness. These are not material. We can't see or touch them, just as we can't see or touch what we love about another person. Because what gives a person life is invisible to our material eyes. I'm told that energy is not destroyed or created. So when you're born, where did your life force come from? The body didn't create it. When you die, where does your life force go? The body no longer has it. Your life force existed before you had a body and will exist after your body dies. When you see yourself and everyone around you as immortal spirits, the only thing that can be lost are material and temporary. And the only permanent thing is the spirit that existed before you were born and continues to exist after the death of the body. Spiritual truth number 3, your life continues after the body dies. Sufferings due to causes prior to the present existence, as well as those that originate from present causes, are frequently the consequence of errors that have been committed. This is to say that through the action of a rigorously distributive justice, and get this, listen carefully, we come to suffer what we have made others suffer. Consider this. Every action is a cause that produces a consequence. There's no such thing as a cause without a consequence, and there is no consequence that doesn't have a cause. Our lives are a long chain of causes and consequences that shape our future. So that any action you take today changes your tomorrow, or even sooner. There are circumstances in our lives, good and bad, that we can trace back to past actions, but there are so many others where the previous act seems impossible to discover. Now, I want to take some time with this because there's a lot to consider. In the movie The Shawshank Redemption, The main character is in prison for 2 murders he didn't commit. He's trying to make sense of how, after 19 years, he could still be in prison. He's talking to a fellow inmate and he says, bad luck floats around and has to land on someone. And this time it was his turn. Now, what he called bad luck was not luck at all, but merely cause and consequence. We can't predict how long it will take for the consequences of an action to play out. It could be seconds, years, or even after we die. But the consequences cannot be stopped. Now, spiritual traditions tell us that there's an afterlife, whether it's Christianity's heaven and hell, Judaism's world to come, Islam's day of judgment, or Hinduism's cycle of reincarnation, a belief that we Spiritists share. We're responsible for every one of our actions and will face their consequences regardless of how long that'll take. It's difficult to suffer without knowing why, but be careful not to get stuck searching for a cause. Here's a story that tells us why. A man gets shot by a poison arrow, and the man says, I don't want that arrow removed until I know whether the person who shot it was a priest, a prince, or a merchant, the name of his family, what kind of bow he used, and whether the arrowhead was an ordinary one or one made of iron. That man will die needlessly before he finds the answer to any of these questions. When we're hit with a consequence that makes us suffer, the arrow, we'll ask, why is this happening to me? And we can spend a lifetime searching for a cause without ever finding one. In this case, all we can do is remove the arrow. So how do I remove it? By accepting that either I did something I didn't take responsibility for, or perhaps I was ignorant that my action would produce the result it did. Either way, my job today is to admit that I did something, whatever it was, and accept responsibility, knowing that my suffering is equal to the suffering I caused to somebody else. When you see that life continues after death, you understand that you are much more than the few years you have during this life. You see that everything you do and say matters, and that losing your body doesn't change who you are. When you die, you won't have your family, your house, your spouse, your children, or your reputation. But you will have the same fears, pains, sorrows, virtues, and vices, and continue to be the same person you are today. Experiment over. You can have all your opinions and all your judgments back. Oliver Wendell Holmes, the 19th century American physician and writer, said, a mind that is stretched by a new experience can never go back to its old dimensions. Now, you just heard 3 spiritual truths. God exists. You are an immortal spirit, and your life continues after the body dies. If spiritual faith open your mind and you let these truths wash over you, and of course, Mr. Holmes is right, then congratulations. Your mind is now larger than it was a few minutes ago. It's said that the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is conviction. Doubt opens our minds to new possibilities. Conviction closes the mind. We're convinced we already have the answer. Spiritual faith doesn't grow when we have certainty without the belief that there's always more to know. Spiritual faith grows when we trust that what we know now is more than enough to continue seeking our faith. We've received so many gifts: reason, intelligence, free will, imagination, creativity, and the capacity to love. We're also given the gift of faith. We are made of faith, and what we have faith in makes us who we are. Just as we must breathe to live, life without faith is just not possible. It fuels our constant search for what we want but don't yet have. It's inseparable from each decision we make, moment to moment. Faith is the gift that gives our lives meaning and purpose. And like all other human gifts, faith is shaped by what we read, what we see, what we hear, what we say, and the company we keep. Spiritual faith gives us the certainty that life continues after death of the body because we are immortal spirits. This faith is refined when we turn to God in moments of pain or sorrow. We speak to Him from the heart. I'm lost. I don't know what to do. Help me. I can't do it without you. These words deepen our connection to God and give us the faith that we are not abandoned and not alone. And help is so near when we open our hearts to the one source who created us, maintained us, and sustained us. Let's give the final words to Jesus. Therefore, I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Which of you, by worrying, could add 1 cubit to his stature? So why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I say to you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Now, if God so clothed the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore, do not worry, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For after all these things the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Edward. I really touched by your words and the presentation. And I really appreciate you sharing such insightful reflections with all of us. But we will have a Q&A session, and I'm asking everyone stay with us because I need to provide a few announcements before we go into those questions and answers. We, first of all, would like for all of you to follow us on our social media channels, as you see on the screen, and do that so you can stay updated on upcoming events and activities. Let us also not forget to visit the U.S. Spiritist Federation bookstore at spiritistbooks.us, where you find this amazing wide selection of Spiritist books, including several exciting new releases. I know I got mine. And if you work with Spiritist youth, and you are interested in educational resources, be sure to explore the Family, Youth, and Children Spiritist Education, known by many by the acronym FIXIE, and its website at spiritismkids.us, where you discover excellent materials and ideas for all youth educators. And finally, let's take a moment to check out this amazing app, Be My Hope, which offers inspiring daily messages that are there to uplift your spirit. And it is available for free on the App Store as well as Google Play. So, thank you. Let's now turn our attention to your comments and questions. And note that there is time to send yours if you haven't done so. So feel free to share your thoughts. All right, let's go ahead and get started with first one. Edward, you discussed the difference between human and divine faith. How do I switch? And I'm talking about on behalf of everybody here. How do we switch our own perspective to what I really should seek in that divine faith versus human faith that we're taught?
No, this is a good question to ask ourselves. Um, I think about human and divine faith as like two levels of life that are just traveling constantly
Hmm.
together. And if and the way we switch from the material to the divine faith is to recognize the truths that we heard today,
Hmm.
that God exists. So when we start doing the smallest thing, just being aware that our capabilities, our ability to do anything is given to us
Hmm.
by God. Everything that we do when we put food in our mouth, that's been provided for us. So everything can be made divine by recognizing who God is, the source of everything, and who we are, you know, made in his image to love him and to
Yeah.
recognize him. So when we stay on that material level and we just think everything is for me, we stay on that human level and we can easily switch it
Yeah.
because it's always right there. God's always there.
I love it. I love that idea, right? And I feel, Edward, that your answer is really an invitation for all of us to move. I'm using my own words, right? From faith as transactional
Yeah.
activity, right? I believe, I have faith, so that I things will go my way, whatever the outcome may be. To perhaps this faith is an alignment, which really speaks to a lot of what you said earlier, trusting even when I don't control the outcomes. You mentioned that just before you closed. So it sounds to me, to put my words into your words, forgive me, that perhaps divine faith isn't about demanding that sense of certainty, but learning to surrender, right? And I think it was beautifully said as you close your discussion previously. So let's go see
Thank
the
you.
next one. Yeah. Hey, Daniel, thanks for your question. If a believer bases their morality on divine command, and an atheist bases theirs on secular ethics or evolution, can they ever truly agree on the foundation of goodness? And goodness is on quotation marks, or are they just arriving at the same destination, via different ways? This is a great question. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Daniel. What are your thoughts on that, Edward?
Yeah, it's often said, people often say, "Well, I don't believe in God, but I'm a good person."
Yeah,
and and there's a goodness to material life. I mean, if there wasn't, then we wouldn't have it.
yeah,
Um, the thing is, the way I understand it is, um, we're all, as we know, we're all going to arrive at the same destination. It's just how long it's going to be. And the difficulty is, I think that we present ourselves with difficulties by staying in this idea that, there's no God and it's all up to me. Because everything that we do is relative to what
mhm,
there's no outside um, measure that we can use to decide what is good or bad. It turns out to be just what's convenient for me, perhaps, or and as we know from history, these ideas change. I mean, there's plenty of ideas that have changed over the years.
yeah,
So we know that me creating my own good standard of goodness is very convenient
yeah.
because whatever I do is pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it goes back to that sense of moral compass, right? What is the goodness? And sorry for putting again words
Yeah,
in my
no,
words into you, Edward, but it's it's really the sense of what is my true north, and is my north or this true north based on the divine laws? And if they're based on divine laws, they're written in our conscience, right? They're not.
right.
Subject to a sacred or not sacred scripture. So I think this is very interesting question.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. In a world that is increasingly more polarized, how can, and I think you spoke a lot about those religious faith, right, become a bridge rather than a source of division? And I really like this question as well.
Yeah. Well, I have two things that I'd like to say about this.
Yeah, yeah,
um, One is that you often find people spending a lot of time defending their faith
yeah,
against other faiths. And I often thought about this as like, if you get married and you defend your love by saying, well, I don't love that person, I don't love that person, I don't love that person, you're not you're not actually spending a lot of time considering how you love the person that you married. So it's the same idea. We have to focus on the teachings that touch our hearts, and there'll be teachings that don't touch our hearts, and those are okay.
yeah,
Other way to think about it is every religion has a truth to it. Perhaps you don't agree with everything that they have,
yeah.
but when we open ourselves to the truth that each religious faith provides, our faith actually increases.
Yeah,
Because if we miss a truth that's in another religion, we don't have the we're not really searching for the complete truth. We're just looking in our little world. So you often see people who have dedicated their lives to God often are interested in other religions, and they
yeah,
want to know what truth do they have that I can't see.
yeah.
So that's the bridge that we can use. We can look at these religions and find out what truth do they have that I don't.
I love that. What comes to my mind is number one, what you said about it is how I express my faith, right? Through words, actions, even thoughts. And it's really not about how, how we are separate. But as you mentioned, this a thought came to my mind, Edward, which was someone that I greatly admire, Joseph Campbell, right? He's considered one of the great American theologists and mythologists. But what I liked about what he wrote and provided to us is in his studies of religion, he did not do the more convention comparative. A religion A says A, right? And B says something else, and there is a difference. He did the opposite. He compared them in what they were alike. And it is really extraordinary what we can see, that the results, right? What is it they are truths as separate as they are, but they're the same in terms of how the faith is felt. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
You can even
Love.
look at it at a micro level too. I mean,
Yeah,
all it's just every individual searching for truth, and
yeah.
if you don't want to work with them, then you're missing the truth that they're searching for too.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So more of an authentic faith, right? No
Yes.
need to defend, like you said. I love this versus that. It's
Right.
just let's resonate. What is that deeply felt authentic faith? I
Right. And what
Yeah,
is my faith bringing to me?
yeah,
How is my faith strengthening me instead of
yeah.
my faith weakening me?
Yeah, absolutely. And Yasko, hi Yasko, so good to see your name here. She brings the following questions. Great talk. I, being raised as Buddhist, always heard my grandparents saying that pain is a way of life, inevitable, and thus must be accepted. I wonder if this knowledge makes Buddhists happier. Love that.
Well, yeah, I mean that is the Buddha's first noble truth, that
Yes,
the
yeah,
suffering. And but the way out of my understanding, I'm not a Buddhist scholar, but the little I know about it, what the Buddha is saying is that by detaching from our material desires, it's our material desires that are causing the suffering,
yeah.
and it's hard to give those up. Boy, I was talking with my wife about this. It's very difficult. Like, you can know something
Yeah.
and you still can't do it. That it's probably not good to have a lot of sweets, but we can't stop ourselves from doing it. I heard something that was kind of helpful in this regard, in that, say we want to, whatever it is that we want to do, even if it's some material thing, want to lose weight or eat less sugar or eat more fiber or whatever it is, whatever it is that we decide that is going to help us. But we know that we're not going to do it consistently. We know that we want to do that, but we're also pulled in another direction. So we can want to want,
Yeah.
because when you want something, it comes from your heart and you're going to do it because this was meaningful to you. And when you're at that stage, when you want to give something up and you still your heart's still calling for something that
Yeah.
that doesn't agree with that, that's where you're kind of, you understand it. And that's the first part of changing your faith, is understanding. And it might take a long time before that understanding settles from the mind to the heart, but it will eventually. So if you want to want and you keep thinking about it, you say, I really want not to eat a lot of cake anymore. I want to, but I want to not do it. That's when we start to change.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying because you referenced After Death by Leon Denis. And
Yeah.
of course, Leon Denis also talks a lot about the want, the desire, and the will, right? You
Yes.
gotta want to want. But Yasko, my dearest Yasko, I have to give you a plug, right? I'm a student of Jonah DeAngelis, and her, I believe it's her third book, Plenitude, really draws a lot. It's an entire book about suffering, but she brings a lot of Buddhist teachings on that book. So, plug to everyone if you want to know more within Spiritism and within spiritual psychology, that's the book to read, right? But let's go back to the next question. So here we have, how does Spiritism help us understand that our true judgment occurs within our conscience rather than through external punishment?
I think it was said from one of the excerpts I took from the Gospel according to
Hmm.
Spiritism. It says, we are going to suffer whatever we make other people suffer.
Yeah.
And so the problem is that we we don't want to admit that. We don't want to accept it. So
Yeah.
what we do is we turn it around, like we do a lot of things. When something is inside of us that bothers us, we project it onto someone else.
Yeah.
So what happens is, instead of turning inwards to our conscience and saying, look, I don't know what I did, but I know I did this in the
Yeah.
past memories.
Yeah.
What we do instead is we say we're being punished.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we kind of push it outside. It wasn't my fault. I'm just being punished for
Yeah.
something I don't. And so we don't. It doesn't have a transformative effect on our lives
Mhm.
in that way. So when something happens, we examine our conscience where this is concerned and say, I got to do what I can to accept that this is
Yeah.
this is my conscience that's bothering me, not
Yes.
the punishment that's bothering me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it really goes well with those three spiritual truths that you brought, right? In my way of thinking, Edward, it's all about the know thyself, and really dive into the judgment built within our conscience. Yeah. I think we have a little bit more time. So, the statement that faith is an inherent sentiment of one's future destiny is important, but how should we relate faith and doubt? And I believe you talked a lot about it. Maybe you can give examples or a little bit further discussion on that, if you don't mind.
Well, if you think about doubt, how do we express doubt?
Hmm.
Through questions, through respectful questions, not questions that we already have the answer for.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah,
those questions, right? We ask the question, hoping I hope this is the answer, or I want this to be the answer. So, what doubt does, as I said, this is like half of a whole idea of faith and knowledge. So we didn't have the knowledge piece; we were just talking about the faith. But what doubt does is it builds up our faith through knowledge.
hmm,
So we ask a question because we don't know. We're searching for something and we don't have that information. Where are we going to get it from? We ask a sincere question of something that we don't really understand, and then we get the knowledge that question provides for us, and that builds up our faith. And that's how. So there's a constant interaction between faith and doubt. It goes, and because doubt is looking for knowledge. Doubt is looking for truth. There's nothing wrong with doubt. That's why we say don't blindly accept something, because then you're going
yeah,
to turn off all the questions.
yeah,
What you want to do is you want to question everything, and you want to know why you believe the things you believe,
mhm,
and that they really mean something to you, that they're going to bring you um, to, to closer to God, closer to yourself, closer to loving, which is which is in the seat of our heart, and how often we're not there. So we want to do that constantly.
I
Ask
love it.
questions,
Yeah.
ask questions, ask questions. Never stop asking questions.
And I love that how well you reframed the idea of doubt no longer is this opposing force to faith, right? It's not doubt versus faith, but it's almost this part of a maturation of itself, if you will. So when we have doubts and we ask questions and we ask deeper questions, and we're doing that not to destroy our belief systems, our faith, but to be more honest, right, Edward?
Yeah.
So love what you said. It's doubt builds the faith through knowledge. I think you mentioned that.
Yes.
Love that. Yeah. Really, really, really good question, good answer. Thank you, sir. Yeah. So, can you help us explain to those who are experiencing uncertainty or loss that those moments of suffering and pain are the best moments for their faith to grow?
Um,
That's a good. That's a tough one. Okay.
well, it's not really. I mean, once we're suffering, what's our natural response? Our response to suffering is, I need help.
Yeah.
You're suffering because you don't know what to do. You're suffering because you're at a loss, or you've suffered some kind of loss that, and I don't know how to fix it. So right away, what that suffering does is it pushes you outside yourself. And then you're going to seek something that's going to at least help you understand pain if it doesn't actually alleviate it. And that's why having something solid, not just something that's going to, I'm going to pray or I'm going to go to church, and then
Mhm.
as we know, it happens. If I've been in a spiritist center for many many years, and you see people come and
Yeah.
there's such agony, and they come there hoping to find answers, and then suddenly some, after it goes away, they disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were just looking for a band-aid.
Yeah.
So so when you're suffering, so you can do that, and that's one way of doing that. I call that the coping mechanism.
Mhm.
There's a difference between coping with something and healing it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And if you're looking only for coping, how do I get out of this situation? Then suffering will just come back. It'll come back in another form later on. But if we're using suffering as saying this is something that needs to be healed, this
Yeah. Yeah.
isn't something that has to be fixed. It has
Yeah.
to be healed. It's not a band-aid I'm looking for. I'm looking for healing.
Yeah.
And the healing is what drives us. That real desire to heal our suffering is the desire that leads us to faith.
Yeah. No, beautiful. I think, and we are somehow blamed spiritists that we both are. We're blamed somehow that we should romanticize pain and suffering. That's not the question at all. The question here is to recognize that somehow going through pain and suffering, we are unmasking our illusions, right? We're stripping away all that illusory material life that we somehow get too attached to it. But really, really appreciate that, Edward. I wanted to really thank you for being here today, and I wanted to thank everyone who's here with us today, who joined us. And for those who couldn't today, but have been regularly following our weekly Spiritism Talk series, it is so important, and your engagement is truly appreciated by all. We also, as you see on the screen, we invite you to join us again next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern for Sabrina Tomaszewski, who will be exploring the doors of life, choices that shape our spiritual journey. We look forward to have you with us. And Edward, before we close, do you mind please maybe sharing some final remarks and lead us in the closing prayer?
Hadn't thought about final remarks, but I would say, from my own work with my own faith, really ask yourself, since questions are so important to developing faith, ask yourself, what am I really looking for when I ask a question? Am I looking for confirmation for what I already know? Or am I really looking for something that I don't know, something that's going to lead me to learn something about myself that I don't already know? Um, that and the other thing that I thought of too is that probably the one, I don't want to call it mistake, but that's the word that's coming to me, that we make, is that we think that we can strengthen our faith alone. And it's so clear that this is a communal journey of faith. We need to find a community of people who are sympathetic, who are on the same path that we're on, because we learn so much from each other. And the temptation of just picking up a book and saying I can learn everything from a book. Books are good, and I encourage everyone to read constantly, but you need a community of people in order to really deepen your faith. So look for that community. There's plenty of spiritist centers that you can use, whatever it is that brings you there. That's the most important thing. As we said, it doesn't matter where you place your faith. It's what that faith is doing to you. And so find that group of people that is going to help you. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for all of the work that's been done to prepare our meeting today. So grateful for the work that's been done so carefully, so lovingly been prepared for us, that allows us to come closer to you, to God, allows us to open our hearts to the love that's been placed there so lovingly by a loving God. And let us build our faith through our communities, build our faith by loving you, building our faith by accepting who we are and our place in the world. And thank you for this community. So be it.